Africa started 2020 with a positive economic outlook. However, the COVID-19 pandemic will have significant effects on economies in several countries as trade, business and consumer sentiment, tourism, and financial markets are disrupted. This is Economic Review Africa and African Patriot Radio. I am Immaculata Udo. Today on Economic Review Africa, we shall be taking a look at COVID-19 impact on economies across Africa. There is the current drop in oil prices, but this is not the first time that this is happening, as it has happened before, like in 2014, where we saw a drop in oil prices in the later part of the year. This contributed to a significant decline in GDP growth in sub-Saharan Africa from 5.1% in 2014 to 1.4% in 2016. During this period, crude oil prices fell by 56% over the space of 7 months. However, the recent decline in oil prices is far more rapid and even more severe. It's more severe than it was in 2014. Already, crude prices have fallen by 54% in the last 3 months, that's since January, or should I say since the start of the year, with current prices falling below $30 per barrel. Non-oil commodities have not been left out, as there has also been a decline since January, with natural gases and metal prices dropping 30% and 4% respectively. Courtesy of this drop in prices, trade will largely be disrupted for commodity-sensitive economies like Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Cameroon, Chad, and Gabon, as well as Ghana. Oil exports range from 3% of GDP in South Africa to as high as 40% in Equatorial Guinea, and it is a key source of foreign exchange earnings. Looking into Nigeria's economic outlook, Nigeria already has a weak growth outlook. The country is already facing a US dollar crunch due to fall in oil prices and might devalue the currency by 10% by the end of June. So Nigeria's naira stands the risk of being devalued should the pandemic tarry. Let's go on a short break. When we come back, we shall be delving into tourism remittance in the face of the COVID-19. Welcome back. This is still Economic Review Africa and African Patriot Radio. Remember, you can follow us across all social media platforms at African Patriot Radio and on Twitter at AP_radio. We were talking about tourism remittance in the face of the COVID-19. It is worthy of note that tourism is an important sector of any country's economy. It accounts for 10% of the GDP in Seychelles, Sao Tome and Principe, and over 5% in the Gambia, Morocco, Mauritius, Tunisia, Lesotho, Madagascar, Egypt, and Rwanda. Tourism employs more than 1 million people in each of Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Africa, Kenya, and Tanzania. In the 2014 commodity price shock, African tourism experienced losses of up to $7.2 billion. The tourism sector across Africa will be heavily affected by the COVID-19 as countries begin to place restrictions on travels and encourage social distancing. This put businesses at Obudu Cattle Ranch in Calabar, Yankari Game Reserve in Bauchi, Lekki Conservation Center, Takwa Bay and beaches in Lagos on hold. Now let's take a look at the financial market. The COVID-19 pandemic has had severe effects on the financial markets, dropping the equity indices in major economies, with S&P All African Index returns dropped by 30% since the beginning of the year. The pullback from the African markets, as well as the projected decline in export revenue, has led to the depreciation of local currencies. This exchange rate depreciation will push up local inflation and trigger monetary policies and financial tightening. As a result of this, debt management and servicing becomes more challenging, and that is a threat to Africa, where an estimated of 1/3 of countries are either in or at high risk of debt distress. Take Nigeria for instance, which aside already being in debt, may find difficulty in generating revenue to finance a 2020 budget of about 10.33 trillion, which had an oil price benchmark of $57 per barrel, but now selling below $30 per barrel. This has forced Nigeria to slash her capital budget and reduce oil price benchmark to $20 per barrel. Let's take a short break. When we return, we shall delve more into other channels by which the COVID-19 will affect economies across Africa. Welcome back. It's still Economic Review Africa and African Patriot Radio. Before we went on that break, we'll be exploring other channels by which the COVID-19 will affect economic activities in Africa. Well, let's be materialized on consumer and business sentiments. On consumer and business sentiments, because there is currently a decline in investment due to uncertain demands as well as a reduction in consumer spending, it is estimated that the COVID-19 related disruption will lower sub-Saharan Africa's GDP growth in 2020 to between 1.5% and 2.5%, and that is below the initial 3.6%. as projected earlier. But if the African government acts swiftly in containing the spread of the virus and global conditions stabilizes, the region's GDP will decline by around 1%, but in a situation where the responses are not swift and the pandemic lasts longer, which will result in global conditions taking more time to normalize, the disruption will be more severe, resulting in a 2.1% reduction in growth to 1.5%. While the health of those affected by the virus is clearly of paramount concern, business owners, consumers, and government must also prepare for the economic effect to ensure that their countries emerge from the crisis stronger than before. This outbreak should serve to highlight the extent to which countries are connected and interdependent, and also should be a call to strengthen global institutions and the global governance system at large. You can take an Economic Review Africa. Until I come your way again, remember, Africa is ours and we must do our best collectively to keep it afloat. My name is Immaculata Udo.